Truth Unveiled here, and today I have so much to share with you. I'm going to be talking about the G7 summit that's coming up in a few days, and I'm also going to be talking about secret meetings that have been going on behind closed doors, as well as the bigger agenda behind all these meetings, and tell you the bigger agenda and just what they're getting ready for and why this concerns all of us literally. But I'm here at Sustainable Development Policy and Practice at the IISD, and the reason I'm here is because I want to talk more about the G7 summit in 2016. Now, this event is coming up within the next 2 days on the 26th through the 27th of May, 2016, and it's to be held in Japan. Now, it says the 2016 Group of Seven or G7 summit in Japan will bring together the leaders of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, and the United States to address so-called world challenges. Under the presidency of Japan, the 2016 summit will discuss measures to address the economic slowdown, terrorism, the humanitarian crisis, and ongoing conflicts and issues. Separate meetings of G7 ministers will also take place through the year at various locations around Japan, including meetings of foreign, finance, agriculture, ICT, energy, education, science and technology, environment, health, and transport ministers. The G7 was officially established in 1985 to facilitate economic cooperation among the world's largest industrial nations. Summit meetings of the member nations began in 1975. Now, you may be wondering why this is so important and why you need to know about this. It's so important is because they talk about more than just what meets the eye. Why do you think all these world leaders even come to these places to begin with and even have these meetings to begin with? You're about to find out why in just a second. Now, later on, I'm going to also take you to some of the secret meetings that have been done and conducted within the past couple of months and tell you the bigger agenda, but also want you to know and want to let you know that these meetings, when they take place, they talk about more than just what they're actually telling you. There's more than what's going on here, and it's time you see exactly what they're planning for and exactly what they're getting ready. Now, I'm at the actual G7 Summit website, and I'll leave the links below so that you can see the actual website for yourself. And as you can see here, the news and press reports that have been going on. But I want to take you to some more places on this website and navigate around this website so you can see it for yourself. Now, here I'm going to take you to the actual overview of the participating countries who are participating and who exactly is going to be there. Now, it says, Introduction to the 7 countries and the European Union participating in the G7 summit to discuss international economic and political issues. And we're going to go over some of the issues that they're claiming to talk about. And of course, we have Japan, and the Prime Minister is going to be there as well. And here are the other summits that Japan has hosted. We also have the Prime Minister of Canada who's going to be there as well. And we have none other than the President of France, the same president who declared a state of emergency in France, by the way, and basically declared martial law in France with the so-called Paris attacks, which we know was one great big hoax. What are they getting ready for? Not to mention, of course, we have our favorite, the Chancellor Angela Merkel of Germany there, who's been vehemently pushing for immigration and allowing all of the migrants to come in order to start and trigger these race wars and get ready to lock down the nation. That is what their goal is. That is what they're getting ready for, and funding through the Zionist courtesy George Soros. Oh, but it gets better than that. We also had the Prime Minister of Italy there. We also had the Prime Minister of the UK there, who's been giving us all this Brexit and all this stuff and this propaganda. But of course, we have our favorite President Barack Obama of the United States, who is there as well. And those are some of the people who are there and slated to attend the meeting. And of course, we have people from the European Union there as well, because it's one giant socialism hub. That's all it really is. And of course, they talk about the outreach meeting as well. But now I would like to take you to the main agenda for the G7 summit and some of the main topics that they claim to be talking about, because they're not going to tell us everything, but they're going to be talking about economy and trade. And they say one of the major issues confronting the international community is growing uncertainty in the economy, impacted by a range of factors, including slowdowns in emerging markets, the sharp drop in oil prices, and weakening trade. But are they telling you that the economy is colliding and it's looking just like it did back back in 2007 and 2008, and even professional economists are saying the exact same thing. Are they going to tell you that? Oh, but they tell us that at the summit, leaders will aim to deliver a positive message to address challenges to economic growth and other risks, because that's the agenda that they're going to keep feeding us. And of course, they're going to be talking about foreign policy, because what else is new? And of course, they're also going to be talking about our favorite, climate change and energy, when we know darn well climate change is just a great big lie. You can even look at some of my earlier videos where I talk more about climate change and how it's all just one big agenda, and how they're using climate change as problem, reaction, solution for the what? For what? Depopulation and depopulating the plane, because you are breathing in too much air, and in order to save this, in order to save Mother Earth from the so-called climate change, we have to kill you off, because that is the agenda that they're going to keep feeding us. And of course, they talk about development and the Agenda 2030. Now, why are they always talking about sustainable development? Well, which goals are they talking about? Oh, the goals of the Georgia Guidestones, which is even depopulation, of course. Then they talk about quality infrastructure investment, health, and they talk about other issues with women, of course, because that's also one of the agenda, women and girls. You can even find it on the Agenda 2030 from the UN, and it goes on from there. But is that all? Now, here you can find some of their frequently asked questions, and I'm just going to go through a few of them so that you can see what it's all about. But it talks about what the G7 summit is, and they say that it's a meeting in which the heads of government from 7 countries participate, along with participants from the European Council and the European Commission. It has taken the G7 summit name since Russia was suspended its participation in the G8 summit in 2014, given the situation in Ukraine. Sounds like a problem, reaction, solution to me, but they say it stands for the Group of 7, and it says, what are the characteristics of the summit meeting? And it says, at the summit meeting, the heads of government sit at one table to hold candid discussions on challenges and make decisions. More like they come and talk about ways of how they want to depopulate us even more. They talk about ways how they want to get rid of us even more and continue to poison us with GMOs and fluoride and other means and methods. They're not going to tell you that because it's supposed to be a secret. You're not supposed to know. Just like you're not supposed to know about the chemtrails that they're doing to poison the air that you breathe and blame it on climate change. Not to mention the weather control as well, which your government has documentation on. Just go look it up. But it also says that progressing globalization is deepening interdependence among the international community, and accordingly, situations develop quickly and have impacts felt beyond the borders in international society. In order to deal effectively with these situations, the summit level leadership is indispensable. In the summit meetings, the leaders have dealt effectively with those challenges to which the international community needed a swift resolution. And I hope you see the bigger agenda there, because what is the bigger agenda in that paragraph alone is that they're always trying to merge as a new world order, one world government, and that is their goal. They cause the problems by causing all of the food shortages and the droughts that go on in different places. And then to their solution, they say, oh, well, this is a worldwide problem. Oh, climate change is a worldwide problem. So to fix this problem, we need to merge as a new world order and a one world government to fix it, even though they're the ones who are causing the problems to begin with, courtesy the Zionists. And I hope you're seeing that. And then it talks about how it's prepared and how long is the term of a presidency. And it goes on from there. And you can also read more about the history of the summit if you would like to on your own time. I'll leave the link below so that you will have the information readily available at your fingertips. This is the progress report from the G7 summit, and I'm going to briefly go over this as well as the full report and sort of tell you some of the cryptic things that and the cryptic messaging that is in all of this, as well as tell you some of the secret meetings that have been going on in the past few months later on. But you can look at this report on your own time. I'll leave the link for it below. But as you can see, it says G7 accountability on development and development related commitments, and these are some of the tasks and commitments that the G7 summit and some of the tasks that they want us to believe that they're doing. Now, if you look at it, you can say development and empowerment for all people have been a consistent priority for the G7. Sounds a lot like the UN to me. And it also says that this report covers 51 commitments in 10 sectors: aid and aid effectiveness, economic development, health, water and sanitation, food security, education, equality, governance, peace and security, and environment and energy. Wow, peace and security sounds like peace and safety. Then comes sudden destruction. Where have I heard that before? I'll let you figure that out, but it says progress on each commitment is measured against agreed baselines, indicators, and data sources. By making progress towards these commitments, we are contributing to progress toward the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development adopted at the United Nations in 2015. Oh, the same agenda that calls for depopulation? Is that what they're getting ready for? Oh my goodness, it's not good. And then it goes on to talk about, of course, there are subsections in the report, aid and aid effectiveness. You can read this on your own. Then they talk about economic development. But what's worse about this is they try to make it seem as though, oh, we're really doing a good thing. We're really contributing to helping others, even though they're the ones who caused the problem to begin with. And then, of course, they talk about health, even though they know darn well the vaccines cause more diseases, and they know that. But let's keep going. And then they say water and sanitation, but they're the ones who are behind the droughts to begin with. Oh, and what about food security? Oh, sounds like a good thing, but there's enough food for the entire world, but they're not going to tell you that, and they're keeping certain areas scarce, and they're staging all of these droughts because they don't want food growing in certain places, because then people will have enough, and then there will be no Agenda 2030 to begin with. Then they talk about education and equality and all this stuff, and they keep feeding us this governance agenda, peace and security, which we know where we heard that before, and then also environment and energy. And then they go on, and the report goes on to talk about some of the conclusions that they make, as well as how they are assessing everything. Very interesting and suspicious indeed. And then they give a summary of the commitment scores and the ratings based on these commitment scores. If you would like to take a look at this more on your own time, I'll leave the link below so you can see it. Now, here's the full report that you can see, or what they consider the progress report of the G7 Accountability on Development and Development Related Commitments. Now, this report is full. It's 176 pages. The other report that I showed you was 16 pages, and I'm not going to go into all of this, of course. You can check this out on your own time. But what I do want to show you is some of the contents that they talk about and some of the things that they talk about, because they talk about some of the same 10 things that we've just gone over in this report, but they talk about it in detail. But I want to take you to something that's very, very interesting and suspicious indeed. Now, this is page 5 on the actual document, but I want to take you to this so that you can see what problem, reaction, solution. It's nothing new. But here I am on the section that says peace and security, and they have a bigger section that is later on in the document. But this says the G7's focus in the field of peace and security has been on the enhancement of maritime security and capacity building for peace operations in Africa. G7 members have continued to engage in multi-layered efforts focusing on maritime security in the Western Indian Ocean and the Gulf of Aden, as well as the Gulf of Guinea, through various channels. G7 members have also provided training and equipment for 49 foreign police units, or FPUs, of 12 countries, and around 4,000 to 5,000 police officers from sub-Saharan African countries have been deployed to peace operations as UN police peacekeepers each year. Now, does this sound like a problem to me? Of course it does. First of all, because we've heard this somewhere: peace and security, peace and safety, sudden destruction. By the way, your Pope has been talking about that too. Oh, is that a surprise? Not to mention, but we're also seeing what? UN police peacekeepers? That sounds like an oxymoron to me, because anytime that the United Nations gets involved with something, it's never good. Not to mention that they're deploying 4,000 to 5,000 police officers. See, anytime they have these agendas and anytime they have these meetings, they're looking for what? Increased security, martial law, to push the agenda for the one world government and the police state. And that is exactly what they're getting ready for. And they're doing the problem, reaction, security by saying, oh, well, we need more police officers. Oh, because of the so-called terrorism going on. And oh, because of terrorism that's funded by the American government itself and by the Zionist itself. Oh my gosh, because of all of that, we need increased security all over the place so that this doesn't happen ever again. Don't you see the bigger agenda and why they're doing that? Because they want massive surveillance, hence the biometric technology that's going on. They're even looking to chip your children, and that's just the darn truth. And I hope you're seeing the bigger agenda for what it really is, because what your military will not tell you this, but what they're planning on bringing the United Nations into America in order to bring in the foreign troops to lock down the country America and to declare martial law. And that is just the honest truth. You can even look up the Jade Helm and the UX drills that have been going on in the past year or so, and they've been planning this and staging this through other government documents. And I've talked about this in my previous videos. If you have not seen them, please do, because it's time to wake up and see just what time it really is. But is that all they're talking about? Oh no, there's always more, because I'm here at the Latin American Herald Tribune, and it says Obama aide to meet during G7 summit to discuss North Korean threat. And that's all we've been hearing about. Oh my goodness, North Korea could have a nuclear bomb. Watch out, you better watch out. North Korea could have a nuclear bomb. It's time to wake up and see the bigger agenda, because they're using North Korea as a rogue nation. Remember, problem, reaction, solution. Don't believe a word that your mainstream media is telling you, because they're only getting paid to lie to your face in order to spread propaganda and spread rumors of wars in order to make it seem as though it's a big deal, even though it's really not. Because what are they really getting us and mentally conditioning us for? Now, this was reported from the Gulf Times, but it says G7 summit will focus on sustainable growth. Anytime you hear that word sustainable or the phrase sustainable growth and sustainable development, some red flag should seriously be ringing, some alarm bells should be ringing. But the reason I'm talking about this is because it says the 42nd G7 summit will be held in Japan this week. The main topics on agenda, as set out by this year's Japan presidency, are the economy, investment, trade, the refugee crises. Oh, very interesting that they would be talking about the refugee crisis. I wonder who's funding it. Climate change and energy, we already talked about that. The fight against terrorism, because oh yeah, that's a real fight. Foreign policy and development. Leaders will also discuss several health policy issues, gender equality, and women's rights. Wow, things that they've been discussing for the past how many years with no changes whatsoever. If anything, it's much worse. I wonder why that's the case. What are they really talking about? The Operation Depopulation, population reduction, and I hope you're seeing that with both your eyes open. Now that we have gone over and talked about the G7 summit and the real agenda behind the G7 summit that's coming up this weekend, I would now like to turn your attention to some of the secret meetings that have been going on, as well as tell you some of the secret meetings that Mr. Obama has been in and have conducted, and some of the unconstitutional executive orders that have been signed behind closed doors, as well as let you know the bigger agenda and what they're getting ready for, and what your lovely government and your lovely military are planning for and preparing for and have been preparing for under closed doors, behind closed doors, for the past how many years now. So I'm here at Bloomberg Technology, and it says inside the secret meeting where Wall Street tested digital cash. And digital cash sounds like biometrics to me, but let's keep going. It says on a recent Monday in April, more than 100 executives from some of the world's largest financial institutions gathered for a private meeting at the Times Square office of Nasdaq Incorporated. They weren't there to just talk about blockchain, the new technology some predict will transform finance, but to build an experiment with the software. By the end of the day, they had seen something revolutionary: US dollars transformed into pure digital assets able to be used to execute and settle a trade instantly. That's the promise of a blockchain, where the cumbersome and error-prone system that takes days to move money across town or around the world is replaced with almost instant certainty. The event was created by Chain, one of the many startups trying to rewire the financial industry, with representatives from Nasdaq, Citigroup Inc., Visa Incorporated, Fidelity, Fiserv Incorporated, and others in the room. These giant banker companies owned and managed by the Zionists. Very interesting and suspicious indeed. But you want to know what's even more interesting and suspicious indeed? I'll tell you what it is: the fact that they're getting ready for the new world currency, the one world currency. And that is exactly what they're testing for and getting ready for. And we see that with all the chips on the credit cards and the debit cards. And we see that nationwide and soon to be worldwide. And they're already testing that with e-passports as well. What are they getting ready for is the question. Not to mention that it's been proven that the Obama administration is getting ready to kill the dollar. Out with the old, in with the new system. It's just another step closer to the new world order. Oh, but they've been quietly building this chain and these blockchains, haven't they? I wonder why that's the case. Why are they keeping this on the hush hush is the question. And it says, we've been quietly building with a whole bunch of folks for a few years, said Adam Ludwin, the company's chief executive officer of Chain. And he says, blockchains are networks, so we think collaboration is important. But what's even more important than collaboration at the beginning is getting the model right. Well, isn't it important to tell the people what you're doing behind closed doors? Isn't that important as well? Probably not, possibly not. And then, of course, they talk about the era and how they see it in the next 30 years or so because they already have the technology ready to go. And they're even talking about more collaboration with bigger companies. Sounds like the collaboration and getting ready for what? The one world currency, which is even at the door. We don't know when it's going to be enforced. It could be this year, it could be next year, it could be the year after, but it's only soon enough. It's only a matter of time. Now, I've gone over this post last month, but I'll just reiterate it and I'll even leave the video below so that you can see it. But it says, Obama announces unexpected meeting with Yellen following tomorrow's expedited procedures Federal Reserve meeting. And this was reported by Zero Hedge. Now, I talked about this last month and this got a ton of attention because this was the first time that Obama and the Vice President, Joe Biden, met with the Federal Reserve Chair, Janet Yellen. Now, why is this such a big deal? Because what are they really talking about behind closed doors is the question. And not only that, but it was with expedited procedures, which has never ever taken place before. What are they getting us ready for is the question. But if you thought that was the only secret meeting that was conducted and held within the past couple of months, oh no, think again, because I'm here at Bloomberg Politics and it says nuclear drones from dark web cited by Obama in terror scenario. And I talked about this in my videos below too, well, last month, and how last month at the Nuclear Security Summit in 2016 that Mr. Obama talked about what a nuclear drone scenario within Washington, D.C. and within America in general, and how terrorists were behind nuclear drones. And I talk more about that in my video below, which you can watch below and see more of. But that's not the only meeting and secret meeting that's been going on. Oh no, there's always more. Because your government has been bugging out, literally. And I'm here at Cornell University Law School at the Legal Information Institute. And the reason I'm here is because I want to talk about the Declaration of National Emergency by President, publication in Federal Register, effect on other laws superseding legislation. Now, what you'll see is that this has been published and it says, with respect to acts of Congress authorizing the exercise during the period of a national emergency of any special or extraordinary power, the President is authorized to declare such national emergency. Such proclamation shall immediately be transmitted to the Congress and published in the Federal Register, even though that goes against the Constitution itself. Very interesting and suspicious indeed, because why are they even doing this and why are they even passing all of these national emergency acts and conducting these secret meetings behind closed doors? Because your president and your elite have been working real hard at doing what? Conducting elite evacuation drills so that they can get out of Washington, D.C. in the event of a staged national emergency, which your government and military have been vehemently preparing for. Not only that, but they're looking to make Denver the de facto capital of the New World Order, and you can look up more about that. Not to mention the military itself planning on flooding Western U.S. and the Midwest and much of the East Coast. They even have maps for this. That is what they're getting ready for, and they're getting ready to what? Hide out and bug out. That is what the elite are doing. That is what they're planning for and getting ready for. But I'm also here and talking about this lovely executive order, the facilitation of a presidential transition. And I've gone over this executive order from the White House, which basically what gets the president ready for presidential transition, more unconstitutional executive orders. What are they getting ready for? Please seek Yahuwah and his true son Yahusha so that you can be ready for all of these things, because there's a lot they're not telling you. This is Truth Unveiled. Shalom.